Okay, so here's the thing, is that recently I made the decision to switch out of my lighting setup, okay? For the last 7 or 8 years, I've used Elinchrom Quadras, the big Ranger pack, 1100 watts. Look, loved it. I've had some issues recently with it. I've had them in for repair. I've had capacitors that have been replaced over the years, and I've had issues with cords, things like that. Last month we were in Lake Como, Italy, shooting a very awesome high-profile wedding, and I had the Quadra packs go down on me a couple times with different error codes, and I'm 99% sure it was because of a cord issue. So for a long time now, I've wanted to just cut the cord and get rid of it, and just go with an all-in-one design, all-in-one kind of flash head design. Well aware that Godox is out there, and I'm well aware that I could have like 47 of them for the price of one Profoto head. Couldn't care any less about that, okay? I'm not starting out, not a hobbyist, and the financial piece of it isn't the number one. It's always a consideration, but it's not the number one thing that I'm looking at. I don't even want to talk about that right now. I couldn't care any less. I don't want to get into that in the comment field. All that matters is that I've made the decision to team up with Profoto, and I got myself the B1X Location kit. I got a $500 rebate through B&H for a limited time. I got a really good price on that kit. Got 2 heads. I got their amazing backpack. That shipped here. I received it about 10 days ago. Took it out. And if you're following me on Instagram, you already know my thoughts and feelings. This thing is just sick. It's awesome. Build quality galore. Super awesome. I've done 2 production location model photo shoots here in Miami. And it's just so awesome. I love it. I'm like completely like liberated all over again as a photographer. I'm so excited to go out and do shoots now, not have to struggle with that cord. High speed sync is actually really, really awesome. I've been overpowering the sun with no problem. I've been experimenting with different modifiers and things like that. All good stuff. Here's the thing, is that 5-6 days into owning the B1X kit, Profoto, as I'm sure you know, has now announced the new B10s, which are basically a flash head that's half the size, half the weight, and half of the advertised watt seconds as the B1X, 250 versus 500. And I just know from my own experience that, you know, power is everything. My style of photography is all about going on location. I live in Miami. It's sunny here all the time. I'm always kind of fighting and wrestling the sun, so I need every ounce of power, especially now that I like to use high-speed sync and things like that. So when they announced this, my first reaction was, oh, that's really cool. Too bad they didn't make it more powerful. You know, then it could probably replace like the bigger B1X. So everything was all fine and good, and then a couple days ago, this photographer who I never even had heard of prior to this, Michael Anthony out of LA, and if you don't follow him, I would recommend following this guy, especially on Instagram, where he has a lot more traction. This guy is awesome, really cool style, similar sort of style as to what I do. I think you would all agree. Anyway, he has a YouTube channel as well. He was at the Profoto Alaska release, and he was there, and he did a quick comparison in his living room of power output of the new B10 versus the B2. And long story short, he was finding that the new B10 was putting out a full stop more power than the B2, which is also rated at 250 watt seconds. Now, this is probably, as he pointed out, attributed to just a more efficient head. The reflector inside of the glass is just, you know, either shaped differently or it's more reflective, whatever the case is, which is really cool. I mean, to really get to the bottom of it, you need to put it through a modifier and see how it's gonna rate once the flash has been kind of equalized. The other thing, though, that really got me is that he put in the comment section, or in the description rather, on that video, that he only noticed about a 1/3 stop difference between the new B10 and the B1X, which is twice as heavy, twice as more powerful, supposedly, on the watt seconds, and it's a lot bigger and bulkier. Now things got interesting, and I kind of stopped dead in my tracks, and now for the last several days, I've got like absolutely no sleep. And forgive me, Michael, I've literally taken over your YouTube channel in the comments fields, and I apologize, but I'm sitting here on this very expensive lighting kit that I just bought with B&H, and I have a small window of time that keeps shrinking each day as to whether I can return it and get my money back and then pre-order the B10s, or do I keep the B1Xs, and that's the boat that I'm currently in right now. So, and a 1/3 stop difference is really, for me, that's okay. I mean, if my assistant sneezes with the light stand, that's probably a 1/3 stop variation. That's not a big deal. Where things get into be a bigger deal is when we start talking about a half stop and perhaps obviously a full stop as it's supposed to be. So watt seconds, we all should know, and if you don't know watching this, watt seconds is not a determinator of power output, okay? Power output is just that, it's power output. And Mark Wallace, I'll put a link below, did an amazing video testing a whole bunch of different flashes at different watt seconds versus their output, and you're gonna find that the results can be all over the map, okay? So, but in this case, we're talking about the same manufacturer, and we would assume, very similar styles in terms of their light output, in terms of the flash tube and the architecture. But things change, and they've gotten more and more efficient, which is really, really cool. And basically, it looks like we're going to be seeing a lot more power than what we're used to seeing at the 250 watt second label coming out of this new Profoto B10 head. So now Michael agreed. Yesterday he did a styled shoot out in LA, and he's probably editing the video as I'm recording this. So I hope early next week, I hope that he gets out this video and touches upon his real world use of that. In the meantime, I've gone and I've spent hours and I've sniffed out a couple other videos, which I'm going to link down below. One of them is through Profoto. It was a live video that a couple studio photographers did. I'm pretty sure that they're affiliated with Profoto, and they did a really great comparison of the light spread output of the B10 versus the B2. Yeah, even threw in the A1, and of course the B1X was in the mix, and it really shows how the spread of light is very, very different, and it also explains how the power difference can be a little bit different. So, in other words, like the A1, the speedlight style flash, has a very, if you zoom it in, it's going to have a much higher guide reading on the meter versus if it's a wider spread. More importantly, the B2 had a pretty wide spread, but the B1, it's a little bit more narrower, and then the B1X had a very broad spread of light. So it's hard to kind of gauge the power output because of that. So when you take the light and then you put it through a modifier like an umbrella or a softbox or a beauty dish or something like that, the spread becomes a bit more equalized, and it kind of comes through the same shape modifier. So there you get a better sense of what the power output is. And I found a guy, Neil, who I will put a link to his blog post down below, who was also at the Alaska event with Michael. And I got him to go and shoot a video earlier this morning in his studio based on that principle alone. So he did both bare bulb testing on those three lights, and then he went and he dumped them all in a reflective umbrella and then measured it. And what he came up with, which so far I'm going to say is the most accurate of all these tests, was that basically there's a half stop difference between the B1X and the B10. Which is all that I care about for my own personal use here, because I'm just comparing the two flashes. Now, a half stop power, that's very frustrating because it's like, it's something, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's a half stop of light, and that can make quite a bit of difference depending. Now, the only thing, there's two areas here that haven't really been tested, and I don't have a B10, and otherwise I'd be doing these tests for you guys. The other things that need to be talked about is the high-speed sync efficiency between the B10 and the B1X. I'm waiting for someone to release a video that shows that, especially at the max shutter speed of these cameras. That's a consideration for me and most users that are going to be really using the full power and potential out of this. And the second thing is the Magnum reflector. Now, this is a magic reflector that Profoto has put out. It's actually this guy here. Hopefully it focuses on this. This reflector here is absolutely, positively amazing. It actually adds about 2 stops of power. I've tested that here with the B1X, and it really does. It's really unbelievable. And it's actually, although it's a small, kind of hard, punchy light, it's not that, it's kind of soft for what it is. And I could totally use that for some of the model shoots that I do to overpower the sun. And arguably, I could probably use that on the B10, regardless if it's a half stop or even a full stop less power. I can probably still overpower the sun with that. My question, though, is that if we use that reflector on the B10 and on the B1X, are we going to see the full 1 stop difference in power? Because in that modifier, it's going to collect all of the light spread from the wider B1X head and throw it all forward, as opposed to the more narrow beam of the B10. So I think that that's where Profoto is getting their one-stop difference between the 250 watt second B10 and the 500 watt second B1X. I also noticed on the Profoto website, if you click on the specs and you go to flash, both of the guide numbers that they give you are based using, and there's a little asterisk with the Magnum reflector, that reflector. And I think that that is why, because I think in their head, they're trying to measure the total flash output all contained together as just what's possible. And if that's the case, then that could be a consideration, because if I am outside and I am faced in a bright sunny condition and it's all about overpowering the sun to get that look, which I love doing, then I could throw on this Magnum reflector and get a full stop more power than what the B10 is going to do. So we need to get somebody to quickly throw together a test to do that. I'm begging you guys to do that, those of you that have both of these lights, so that I can kind of get a really good sense of what's possible. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to put a link in the description for these other very helpful individuals that have really kind of jumped on board, and they've been very responsive. Also, a shout out to Patrick and Lee Morris on F-Stoppers, who were also at that event. They are also going to be doing a video, hopefully here soon, on some of this. Thank you so much, Michael. You've been very responsive, and thank you so much to Neil. You've actually jumped on the request, made the video, and I'm going to be linking to your blog too, because this is a huge help for people that are out there that are actually trying to compare this stuff. And people like me who have either recently purchased the B1X or are on the fence between, well, which one do we choose and why? Things like this can be very, very helpful. All right, guys, so as I get more information, I'm going to update links here in the description, and once I get this all ironed out and I set all my lighting system, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do a full review. I'm going to talk to you guys more on the why and just kind of what's going on here in my little world, okay? Thanks so much. Talk soon.